Hi all, welcome to Free Education. We will discuss one topic from environmental science, and the topic is decision making and sustainable development. So some useful words are and expressions are there. So risk. What are the risks associated with environmental problems? When we discuss a risk means a harm which can damage with different respect. Okay, then probability. How much probability is there to cause harm, or how much level of harm, all these things. Then possibilities, benefit assessment. Assessment is determining the level. Then exposure also one thing, that is called how much we are facing that pollutants, exposure towards the pollutants. Okay, then toxins. As we know, different toxins are there from environmental pollutions. These environmental pollutions will cause to produce pollutants. These pollutants will damage our health, even our death also can happen. Then priority. What are the priorities available before making decisions? Whether the benefit, whether the jobs, all those things will be decided. So what are the priorities? The health is more important, or the jobs of the people is more important? Both the things we have to discuss. Priority. Then regulatory means those authority who can regulate these all pollution control board. These are all regulatory authority. Then monitoring is also required to monitor, okay, to monitor the pollutants level, or how much pollution is caused by that particular process. This is called environmental assessment, environmental pollution assessment. Okay, all these things are involved. Another useful words and expressions are there. Threshold, perception, consumption, supply, demand, emission, subsidy, sustainable, renewable, and institutional. All these things are terms present in this. Then measuring risk. How can we measure the risk? हम मेजर करेंगे कैसे? वो रिस्क कितना लेवल तक हमको हार्म करेगा, वो पोल्यूटेंट कितना लेवल तक हमको हार्म करेगा, उसको मेजरिंग रिस्क बोलते हैं. टू प्राइमरी फैक्टर्स इन मोस्ट डिसीजंस are there. So risk, how likely is it that something will happen? How likely, कितना उसका चांसेस है वो हार्म करने के लिए, वो प्रोसेस जो होता है उसमें से जो पोल्यूटेंट निकलता है वो कितना हार्म करेगा. दैट इज द हाउ लाइकली इज इट दैट समथिंग विल हैपन. दिस ऑल्सो कॉज टू डिसाइड differently. Okay, then cost also cause to decide different things. Okay, next, what is the cost of this course of action? That is also important. Course of action. Then risk analysis, how much risk is associated with this process? If we produce a product, how much risk is associated? That is also called risk analysis. Involves defining mathematical probabilities also there. Mathematical probability also there, relating the likelihood of an event. What is it? Adverse effect. What are the adverse effect due to that process, that industry, that pollution? What is the adverse effect? Adverse effect means विपरीत result, means जो हमको expect नहीं था उसका different result कैसे आता है, उसको adverse effect बोलते हैं. Then probability and possibility. Probability and possibility. How the probability is quantitative, how likely, possible. All these things are there. Okay. Next, decision making process. The assessment, cost and consequences of risks are important to the decision making process. Decision making, what is the main purpose of decision making is? Purpose is to control the pollution, control the pollutant, control the exposure to the society, so that our society will not be harmed. Okay, all these things are there. So cost is there, consequences of risks are there, all are important decision making process. Okay, then risk assessment. In environmental risk assessment, uses facts and assumptions to estimate probability of harm to human health or the environment resulting from exposure to pollutants, toxins or management decisions. All these things are there. Then estimates typically based on broad assumptions to ensure a lack of complete knowledge does not result in an underestimation of risk. We cannot underestimate the risk because we don't know, we don't have the proper knowledge about that pollution or pollutants or toxins. Okay. Then over the past decade, the largest impact has come in practices involving carcinogens. Carcinogens are those toxins which can cause cancer, can be caused by what? Carcinogen. And in this past decades, last 10 years, we have got the largest impact because of these carcinogens. These carcinogens are the pollutants which come out due to different industrial practices. Risk assessment is also being used to help set regulating priorities and supporting regulatory actions. Risk assessment helps a lot to decide. Okay, who will decide? The regulatory bodies, the authorities which can control the production, how much production should be there from that industry, what should be the level of that production. All these things are there. Some example is given. Suppose cancer risk and fish consumptions. Cancer risk and fish consumptions, how these two are related. A study by the National Wildlife Federation provides estimates for cancer risk associated with the consumption of sport fish. See, we have fish in ponds, and when we dispose our toxic wastage near to ponds or any river beds, what happens? These toxins will enter to water, and those fish which are living inside the ponds, they will automatically get exposed to the toxins, and those toxins will enter to fish, and when the fish will be consumed by the people, then cancer will result, because those toxins which are consumed by these sport fish will result in biological magnification. वो धीरे धीरे वो fish के अंदर grow करता है वो, because those fish are not digested by those pollutants, those toxins are not digested by the fish, and it does not go outside of the fish, and it remains inside the fish. So what will happen? Biological magnification will happen, and at last what will happen? Those fish will be consumed by whom? Men. And when men will be eating that fish, those pollutants will also enter to the human beings, which are carcinogens in nature, which can cause cancer, and the result is what? Cancer will be the disease, okay, and the death can occur. So this is a cancer risk and fish consumptions. A study by the National Wildlife Federation provides estimates for cancer risk associated with consumption of sport fish. Then risk management. A decision making process that includes assigning priority to different risks, determining necessary funding to reduce risks to an acceptable level. Acceptable level is that level which will not cause harm. The level of the toxins will be there, it will be exposed to the environment, but it will be exposed in such level that will not cause any harm. Deciding where greatest benefit will be realized from limited funds, determining acceptable level of risk, okay, planning, enforcement and monitoring. All these things are there, okay, in risk management. Determining acceptable level of risk, planning, enforcement and monitoring. Monitoring whether the level is coming in acceptable level or not, whether the level of the pollutants is coming in acceptable level or not. Another thing is politics. Politics of risk management frequently focus on adequacy of supporting scientific evidence. Defining the extent of the problem helps determining the rest of the management process. Below a certain risk threshold, action may be unnecessary. What is the risk threshold? If the exposure or if the release of the toxins is below the threshold, threshold means that within the level, action may be unnecessary. If it is coming, if the pollutant is coming under the acceptable level or the risk threshold, action is not required to control that risk, to control that pollutants. Okay. True and perceived risks. Perceived risk is different and true risk is different. People often overestimate frequency and seriousness of sensational cause of death and underestimate risk from familiar causes. Elimination of all risk is impossible. We cannot eliminate all the risk, but we can reduce the risk level, because we have lot of problems in the society, lot of problems in the with respect to the jobs. Because of jobs, we cannot stop all the industries, because if we stop the industry, unemployment will result. So we cannot close the industry also. So we cannot underestimate risk from familiar cause also. So elimination of all risk is impossible. Elimination of all risk is impossible. And ongoing dilemma is, should the government spend the most of the money on areas with the greatest impact or areas where the most people are upset? Government is also in dilemma where to spend money to control the industry's pollution level, or in the different areas where the people are facing problems. Ultimate question is, what degree of risk is acceptable? What degree? How much risk is acceptable? That is the ultimate questions in decision making process. Negligible risk. Point of no significant health or environmental risk is negligible risk. Then public generally perceives involuntary risk as greater than voluntary risk. Public, what they think? Involuntary risk as greater than voluntary risk, and newer technologies as greater risk than more familiar technologies. Okay, this is true and perceived risks. Economics and the environment. Now, economic principles are also related to decision making in environmental problems control. Okay, environmental risk management. Okay, environmental problems are primarily economic problems. Economic problems. Okay, economics deals with the resource allocations. Economic concepts economic good and service is anything defined as scarce. Resource is anything that contributes to making desired goods and service available. Supply is the amount of the good or service available for purchase or consumption. All these resources, how much resources we can use, that is also one issue, because if we use the resources like anything, then it is not a sustainable development also. How much resource we can use for that production, of that's why we need to decide that also, because sustainable development is required, because our future generations should not be harmed because of us. Because of our exploitation, future generations should not be harmed. They should also live in this world without any problems. Okay, that is also a decision making problem. Economic concepts. Demand is the amount of good or service consumers are willing to buy at various prices. Supply and demand curve. Prices reflect strength of demand or and availability of the commodity. Demand or supply, prices raise, demand, supply, prices lowers is there. See, demand, if the demand of the product is more, then automatically the price of that product will be more. So if the demand is more, then price will be more. If more the demand, then the production will be more. If production is more, then pollution is also more. So that's why that is also a decision making elements. Okay, then factors that determine supply. The supply of a good or service depends on the several factors shown here. What are those? Availability of the raw materials, cost of obtaining, processing, degree of completion, recycling, societal costs. All these things are the factors that determine supply. Example is, as a result of increased interest in recycling, the supply of recycled newspapers grew substantially between 1970 and 1930. The demand changed very little. Therefore, the price in 1993 was extremely low. Demand was very low for this recycled newspaper. So the price was also low. Beginning in 1994, the demand for recycled newspapers and cardboard increased. Thus, the price rose significantly. Prices were more stable through 2000. Supply and demand. So here supply and demand also is an element of decision making. What our main purpose is to decide how much risk is acceptable. So demand and supply and demand is also an element of decision making. Then market based instruments. Market based instruments, what they do? They provide incentive for people and companies to reduce pollution by imposing cost on pollutions causing activities. 5 basic categories are: make clear the personal interest in pollution reduction, tradable emissions permits, give companies the right to emit specified amounts of pollutants. Specified amounts of pollutants are allowed. Okay, these market based instruments will cause what? This instrument will give companies the right to emit specified amount of pollutants. And another market based instruments are emissions fees, taxes, charges, make damaging activities more expensive. What are the pollutants which are causing more harm? Okay, that will be taxed, heavily taxed. suppose smoking cigarettes are causing harms, they are carcinogens, they are causing cancer, so they are heavily taxed, that products are heavily taxed, so the production will be less. These are market based instruments. Emission fees, when something is emitted into the environment, there is a fees, you have to pay the fees. If you are emitting more pollution, then you have to pay high amount of fees. Then taxes is there, charges, all these things are these things. What they do, they do what, they cause the reduction of pollutants. They cause these market based instruments also cause reduction of pollutants, because the emission will be less, production will be less. Then another thing, place surcharge on price of products that is refunded upon return. And suppose a product is purchased in large amount, then it will also be returned, it can also be returned, and by that recycle also happen. Then subsidies, monetary incentives designed to reduce product costs. Then determine whether a policy generates more social costs than social benefits. Then another market based instruments is extended product responsibilities. If the product responsibility is extended, then what will happen, that product will not be produced in large quantity, because if that product has larger product responsibilities, if warranty is more to that product, then that product will not be thrown outside, it will be used for longer period, because it will be repairable by the company without any cost. That's why this extended product responsibility is also there. These responsibilities will be taken by the industries, because they are producing that product, they have to give more warranty, so that that product will not be produced repeatedly. If that product is having the warranty, then larger warranty, then what will happen, that product will be used by the consumer for longer extent. Okay, so relies on implementation of life cycle analysis. Life cycle of what, that product. Identify opportunity to prevent pollution and reduce resources and energy use in each stage of the product chain. Changes in product design and process technology, because we have to we need to increase the warranty, we have to design and process the technology such that it will have larger life cycle, that product will have larger life cycle, so waste will be reduced, because that product will not be wasted in shorter period, because its life cycle is more. Cost benefit analysis, this is also one market based instruments. Determine whether a policy generates more social costs than social benefits, because we have to think that that product has social cost, has larger social cost than social benefits. 4 steps are there: identify the project, determination of all impacts, determination of the values of impact, calculation of net benefits. Example is cost and benefits of improving air quality. Concerns with cost benefit analysis, not everything has an economical value. Objects or resources devoid of economic value may only survive if and when they become economic. Then sustainability, 5 characteristics that define sustainability. Renewability, whether the product can be renewable repeatedly or not. Then use of renewable resources, those resources which are renewable, that will be used for that product. Then substitution, use renewable resources instead of non-renewable resources, because when we use non-renewable resources we also produce a lot of pollution. When we use renewable resources we have less pollution. Then interdependence, a system cannot be sustainable unless the larger system which it belongs to is also sustainable. Then adaptability, a sustainable community can absorb shocks and can adapt to take advantage of new opportunities. Then institutional commitment, a sustainable community adopts laws and political processes that mandate sustainability, economics and sustainable development. Okay, we have the regulatory authority, government or political decisions makers which can cause that sustainable developments is a must, that is also required for sustainability. Then external cost, what is external costs? External costs are expenses related to a product that are borne by someone other than the individual using the resources. Okay, so pollution prevention costs incurred to prevent pollution can often be factored into life cycle analysis. If pollution prevention also costs, these costs are also included in the product. So this is also a factor into the life cycle analysis. External costs are those costs which are pollution costs, can be broken down into two major categories: private or public expenditure to avoid pollution damage once pollution has occurred, increased health costs and loss of use of public resources because of population. So these are external costs. Pollution prevention is an external cost. How to manage this pollution, this is also a cost. Because of this the product price is also increased. If the product price is also increased, we need to provide a better quality for that product. If the product quality is not having the proper life cycle, then people will not purchase that product. So if cost is increased to that product, people will not be afford that product, so the production of that product will also be reduced. This is external cost. External costs are those costs which are not directly associated with the production of that product. Then summary. Summary is risk assessment is the use of facts and assumption to estimate the probability of harm to human health or the environment. Risk assessment is the use of facts and assumptions to estimate the probability of harm to human health or the environment. People frequently overestimate new and unfamiliar risks but underestimate familiar ones. Environmental problems can be viewed as economic problems, and economic policies and concepts play important roles in environmental decision making. Okay, then cost benefit analysis is an important economic tool which concerns with whether a policy generates more social benefits than social costs. Okay, with this we have finished the topic of what elements of decision making to control risk, and now we will discuss some MCQ. Okay. So first question is a statement about how likely it is that a certain event will occur is called probability, possibility, risk assessment, risk analysis, none of the above. So our right answer is probability. Probability is a statement about how likely it is that a certain event
will occur. Okay. Next, cancer causing chemicals are called what? Cancer causing chemicals are mutagens, carcinogens, seraphims, androgens, none of the above. So the right answer is carcinogen. Carcinogen causes cancer. Okay. Next, which of the following does not affect the supply of a particular product? Okay. So how plentiful the raw materials are, this is affecting. Demand for the product is also affecting. Scarcity of the product is also affecting. Price of the product is also affecting. So all of the above affect supply. Okay, all of the above affect supply. Next, when demand exceeds supply, the price of the good or service falls. It is false, because when demand exceeds the supply, the price of the good increases. Okay, or the service price is also increased because the demand is more. Okay. Next, which of the following is not an example of market based instrument? Which of the following is not an example of a market based instrument? So first is tradable emissions permits, emissions fees, taxes and charges, information programs like the toxic release inventory, deposit refund program. All of the above examples of market based instruments, all of the above are examples of market based instruments. Okay. Next, extended product responsibility is a principle for pollution prevention policies that focuses on the entire life cycle of a product rather than simply on the facilities where that product is produced. Is it true or false? It is true. Okay. Again, extended product responsibility is a principle for pollution prevention policies that focuses on the entire life cycle of a product rather than simply on the facilities where that product is produced. So it is true. Okay, it is true. Next, when people try to weigh whether a particular policy is worth the cost. So, when people try to weigh whether a particular policy is worth the cost, they engage in what? Price reductions, risk assessment, cost benefit analysis, sustainable development, none of the above. So, the right answer is cost benefit analysis. They are engaged in cost benefit analysis. Next, determining which costs to factor into an analysis and determining the value of the environment are two problems with using cost benefit analysis for environmental issues. Is true or false? It is true. It is true. Again, determining which costs to factor into an analysis and determining the value of the environment are two problems with using cost benefit analysis for environmental issues is true. Next, two problems facing advocates of sustainable development are the current distribution of wealth worldwide and the factor that we do not factor environmental improvement or decline into the gross national product calculations. Whether it is true or false, it is true. Again, two problems facing advocates of sustainable development are the current distribution of wealth worldwide and the fact that we do not factor environmental improvement or decline into the gross national product calculations is true. In the next question, in the terminology of economics, polluted air represents what? An external cost, an internal demand, a profit enhancing strategy, habitat destructions, none of the above. So the right answer is an external cost. According to the terminology of economics, polluted air represents what? An external cost. An external cost is the right answer. Pollution prevention costs are pollution prevention costs are costs that result from increased health costs and loss of public resources after a particular area or resource has been polluted. So it is true or false? It is false. Okay, so again, pollution prevention costs are costs that result from increased health costs and loss of public resources after a particular area or resource has been polluted is false. Since, next question, since the industrial revolution lost the biodiversity has been between 10 and 20%, mostly as a result of the loss of habitat. It is true or false? It is true. It is true. Okay, next debt or nature exchange propose that a foreign debt bought at a discount in exchange for the developing countries investment in the conservation or sustainable development of its own resources. It is true or false? It is true. So again, debt for nature exchanges proposes that foreign debt be bought at a discount in exchange for developing countries investment in the conservation or sustainable development of its own resources. It is true. So with this we have completed the important MCQ from environmental science, which is mainly dealt with decision making elements. Okay, how to decide, what are the different elements of decision making. Okay, here we have discussed for what? For analysis of risk associated with environmental studies. Okay, so thank you.